that last week of school. It's great to have so many people with us today on, as I said, what is that last week of school. The webinar, PE, School Sport and Physical Activity Beyond Lockdown. What we're really aiming to do over this next hour is to look at where we currently are and what's available locally in Birmingham to support schools, parents and pupils, where we are now and going through the summer and maybe into that September term. My name's Jim Morris, I'm the Development Manager for Youth Sport Trust. I work closely with Bet in Birmingham. I've assembled an expert panel of local providers and key stakeholders within Birmingham. So we've got Jane Pillar from Sport Birmingham, who some of you will know. We've got Helen Tonks representing PE at Home. We've got James Grinstead from Sport Birmingham, and we've got Hannah Reid representing the School Games Organiser Group and team from Birmingham. Due to our time, we're going to get straight down to it, but just for a little bit of just to think about going forward. There will be opportunities to ask questions at the end of each deliverer's content and at the end of the webinar. However, if you do want to pose a question in the chat function, some of you may have it at the bottom of your screen there. Others, I've just noticed, might have it at the top of the screen under the More column. So depending on which version you might be running, there might be a different way of going about it. But if you explore for a chat function, you'll be able to find it. If you want to pose a question during the deliverer's content, I'll pick that question up at the end and I'll pose to the deliverer, or we can leave it right to the end. Just to stop any background noise, if you have to keep your microphones muted, unless you're posing a question, that'd be great. Feel free to have your camera on and off. If you want to see some friendly local faces, obviously keep it on. But feel free to keep it off in case you've got any children running behind you in that active homeschool time. Without further ado, we'll hand over to Jane Pillar.
Great, thank you, Jim. So my role is to just update you on the primary PE and sport premium. 4 areas I'd like to cover today is key information around the 1920 grant, also around 2021 and the funding we received last week, or the news. Secondly, looking at how effectively your school is using your funding to impact on pupils' sports participation, learning and achievement. And finally, for you to look at the question of whether that your school is meeting the conditions of the funding and Ofsted requirements. So hopefully we'll be covering those within the next 15-20 minutes. Thanks, Jim. I wanted to start with this really to get you all thinking. We've had this funding now since 2013-14. So the average amount of money that each school across Birmingham has had is around £100,000. So as you know, the amount of funding you each receive is dependent on the eligible pupils within the school. But Birmingham schools have had between 86 and over £120,000. So I'd just like to pose a question with you before I start and ask yourself, of the about £100,000 that you have received, what impact does that look like in terms of physical education, physical activity and school sport in your school? Thanks, Jim. Just a quick reminder then, hopefully you all should know this, but the use of the funding then is to make additional and sustainable improvements to the quality of PE, school sport and physical activity. The key words here are additional and sustainable. So you should be using your premium to develop or add to what the school provides already, and also to build capacity and capability within the school for those pupils that are coming to the school in the future. So those are a quick reminder. The key words here, additional and sustainable, and additional to what your school provides already. Thanks, Jim. The 3 areas that funding cannot be used for, hopefully you all know this already, but a quick reminder. The first one is around PPA cover. So employing coaches or specialist teachers to cover the PPA, that shouldn't be used with the funding. Secondly is to teaching the minimum requirements of the national curriculum. The only area there you can utilise the money is for top-up summing, As you all know, there is a requirement with the national curriculum that every pupil in Key Stage 1 or 2 should be going swimming, but you can use this money for top-up swimming, which a lot of schools do use. And the third no-no then is capital expenditure. And again, we get a lot of questions about this, but it is really down to the capitalisation policy for each school. So what do you call capital funding within your school? And funding shouldn't be used for any of that with this particular pot of money from the government. Thanks, Jim. Reminder then for 1920, by the 31st of July, all primary schools should be having their websites up to date with the PE and Sport premium funding. So by the 31st of July at the latest, just a reminder that on your school websites, you should be showing for the premium funding the exact amount of premium you've received. Secondly, a full breakdown of how it's been spent. Now remember, this is a full breakdown, so we often see big chunks of money, 5,000 for this, 3,000 for this, 8 for this. What the government are looking at is actually a detailed breakdown of how you spend the money. Thirdly, the key word again, what impact the school has seen on pupils' PE and sport participation and attainment. And then the other key word is how the improvements will be sustainable in the future. So those are 4 key areas: the amount of money, the breakdown, the impact, and the sustainability. The new area that you're all aware of for the last couple of years is again Year 6 swimming and reporting on how many of those pupils can swim 25 metres, how many can use the 3 strokes effectively, and how many can use perform safe rescue in water-based situations. So that is a requirement and has been for a while now around the premium website requirements. Thanks, Jim. This is the template, the recommended template from the government around actually including your premium funding, your breakdown, your actions, etc. You don't have to use this particular website tool, but it is recommended. It's been approved and developed by both AFPI, Youth Sport Trust, commissioned by DfE. It is on our website, and hopefully most have seen this on either Youth Sport Trust or AFPI website. So it is the recommended template. It is easy to use and clear to use, and hopefully most of you are utilising that reporting tool moving forward. Next one, Jim, please. Another reminder, hopefully you should all know these, the 5 key indicators which you should be using your funding to support. Now you don't have to use projects, initiatives to support all 5. You could be utilising 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, any of those, but as long as the money that you're spending is supporting any of those 5 indicators or 1 or more. So the first one, engagement of all pupils in regular physical activity, the 30-30 that you're all aware of. Secondly, you can use the funding around the profile of PE and sport is raised as a school tool for whole school improvement. Third one is around staff CPD, increased confidence, knowledge and skills. The 4 is around a broader range of activities and sports. And finally, competition. So those are the 5 main indicators. They've been in place for a few years now. So you have to look at your funding and see if you're supporting 1 or more of those. Next one, Jim, please. Hopefully you're all familiar with this. Obviously the new Ofsted framework that came in last year, September 2019, and more of an emphasis now on the broad and balanced curriculum, greater impact on young people, etc., and internal activities, external activities to do with movement and sport and physical activity. And again, the question, how are you utilising your premium spend to support the new Ofsted framework. Next one, Jim, please. I think this is just to remind you of the process. I utilise this slide when I do training with governors, and it's just a quick reminder of whose responsibility is it within the school. And the top circle really shows whose responsibility is. It is a joint responsibility between your lead governor, the subject lead, and the head teacher. And it is a cyclical process, fairly self-explanatory on there. Looking at your audit, where your needs are, agreed your actions, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting, and it is very cyclical. What I would say is please do not leave it to the last month. I get calls from many schools reporting or asking about the funding in June, July. Please start it early. Please start the process early. Look at your audit. It is a working document. Once you've got your plan on the website, it can be updated on a regular basis. Look at where your gaps are. When I meet schools, I say to them, look at your P and school sport curriculum. Where do you feel your gaps are? Where do you feel you can utilise this premium funding to support those gaps for the young people moving forward? Thanks, Jim. The great news is, hopefully you've all heard this, we found out last Sunday in the middle of the night that the premium funding is carrying on for a further 12 months. So that's excellent news. All English primary schools will be receiving the money for a further 12 months from September for another academic year, 2020 to 2021. And again, as the second comment says, additional and sustainable improvements. This is all we know at the moment. We're waiting further guidance. The key is we're still getting the money, which is wonderful. We're just waiting further guidance from the government. Once we receive that, we'll be in contact with you all and update you on any further amendments, changes, how we can move forward. But the positive news is we are getting it for another 12 months, which is great news. Thanks, Jim. Underspend then, some more good news from the government. Obviously, we're unprecedented times at the moment, coronavirus. So the ring fencing arrangements have been relaxed by the government. So you can actually now carry forward any underspend to next academic year. So any money you haven't spent in this year can be ring fenced and move forward to next year. What I would say, as a second bullet says, if you have underspends or any changes to your plans, just put on the website your reasons for this underspend, and that's all that's required. So just please be honest and open on your plans and on the websites to the reasons why. The third point is key then, you will need to fund and spend all of your underspend from this year in full by 31st of March 2021. Thanks, Jim. Swimming then, I know most primary schools do a lot of swimming in the summer term, a lot of top-up swimming, a lot of their delivery of swimming in the summer term. And again, fortunately, DfE have recognised this, that the ability to collect data on swimming may have been interrupted in these times by COVID-19. So once again, any data that schools do hold regarding swimming and water safety should be entered onto the report with a note to clarify the proportion of the year group relates to and any other limitations. Again, where no data is held, please just update that on your online report. Thanks, Jim. Quick challenge and quick questions for you. Just 6 questions here before I finish off, just to make you think about the funding really. The first one, why is your school undertaking a particular activity? Why are you using the money for a certain activity? Have you done a self-review or an audit? Secondly, what qualification, what sort of quality assurance, safeguarding policies and practices are in place? Have your activities been monitored and evaluated? What evidence do you have? Key areas again, number 4, has the school made a difference? What's the impact on pupils? Be honest. Is the activity or impact sustainable? And how do you know this is going to carry on? And finally, has the school sufficient information to report on swimming? If not, what needs to be done, obviously in relation to the slide that I've just utilised as well. I'm conscious of that. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jay. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. The first one is, Jane, certain areas of my plan have not happened due to COVID-19. So what do we do on the plan, bearing in mind the money's being carried forward? So I think the question might relate to how you actually write in what hasn't been achieved because of the lockdown.
Yeah, I think, Jim, as we said earlier, it's just being honest and putting a statement on your plan to say, why haven't you spent it? What's the reasons? Obviously, if that is COVID, then that's fine. You just indicate that, and just indicate that you are going to transfer that money to next year, and you're going to carry on with those actions moving forward.
Okay, thanks. The second question is, how important is it to involve governors?
Oh, vital. Great question, whoever asked that one. I do actually governor training 3 times a year. So if any of your governors would like to have some training on this, I do a workshop for governors as well. So that may be useful if any of you want governors to be trained. I think the slide I used earlier, the cyclical slide with the circles on, just indicated the importance of governors to the whole of this process. There's 3 key people: the governor, the head teacher and the subject lead, and between the 3 of them, they're key to moving this forward. The other key area that's on the impact tool that I mentioned earlier is that 3 people have to sign now on the impact statement on the website reporting tool, and those are 3 individuals as well. So the governor should be signing what you're putting on your website, again, the head teacher and the subject lead. So they are key to moving this forward.
That's great. Thanks, Jane. And just confirm that we will put, at the end of this, there'll be kind of an FAQ document going out to the schools that Jane's prepared on behalf of Sport Birmingham. So the questions that come in today that Jane's answered will, if they're not already on there, will kind of just ask a couple of questions and answers. If we haven't been able to answer your question that you've posed already, we'll pick it up at the end, just so I'm conscious of time. Thank you very much, Jane. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, over to Helen for PE at home.
Thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Helen Tonks. I'm currently working at King Edward Aston School Sport Partnership, and I've just been asked to share a little bit about a project that I've been involved with called PE at Home over the course of the lockdown period. I've been really lucky to work with 2 amazing people on this project, so it's definitely not just me. Andrew Whitehouse is the senior lecturer in primary PE at BCU. So we've had lots of sort of university perspective on this project. And Sarah Lay is a PE consultant. She's worked in secondary schools and primary schools across the city. So what we were trying to do was come up with a project that would engage young people and raise activity levels with the young people that we work with across our areas. The next slide, Jim, please. So we're really conscious when we were coming up with a resource for our young people that we really need to take into account their background and their circumstances. I know particularly in my partnership, the demographic of young people and families is quite vast. And that sort of also relates to the schools that are within my partnership. I know Sarah and Ange also have worked with lots of different types of people, types of families and types of schools. So it's really important for us to bear that in mind when we were designing a resource. The graphic on the right shows the deprivation within the city of Birmingham. And we know that 40% of young people are in the most deprived areas nationally in the country. So what we didn't want to do was design a resource that was not accessible for those families and young people. Aston sits right in the middle of that dark blue area where the deprivation is the highest. So I know from my perspective, the young people that I work with wouldn't have been able to access resources that may have needed money to be spent on them. And some of them don't have access to the internet either. So it's really important for us to bear that in mind. We know that Birmingham itself is quite a challenging city to work in. 30% of the people within Birmingham are classified as inactive. So even not in lockdown periods, it's quite a challenge to get those people, and those young people in particular, active. And then lastly, just in our thinking, was the fact that we've seen lots and lots of games-based activities online. It's been brilliant to see so many physical challenges, but many of them have been really focused on games. So it was really important to us as 3 PE teachers, essentially, to make sure that we covered more than just games-based challenges. And we know that for a lot of young people, their focus and their favourite activities may not be game specific. So those are all the things that we try to bear in mind when we designed our resources. The next slide, Jim, please. So for us, the ethos of everything that we produced over the 15-week period of lockdown has been really focused on an educative viewpoint. We're all 3 of us are very passionate that PE shouldn't get lost in this sort of plethora of physical activities that are online at the moment. So for us, it's really important there's an educative element to what we've produced. All our resources and cards have a thematic approach to them. So there's cross-curricular content on there. And it's really important that we can have that cross-curricular content. It's well researched. So the idea is that children can pick up prior learning that they've had in school, or it can be the basis of new learning that they can take back into school when they hopefully transition back in September. All the cards are age specific, so they run from early years all the way up to Key Stage 4. The very original set of cards, which were basketball, were Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 4. And we had a lot of feedback from early years teachers asking for additional resources. So they are part of all the other weeks of resources that we produced as well. And crucially for us, they cover the national curriculum and not just games. So things like dance and gymnastics and outdoor and educative content is on those cards as well. We're really passionate that PE is not just about copying a physical activity, it's about understanding the content as well. So all our cards have creativity, there's a focus on independent learning and imagination through all of the activities that we have on there. And as I mentioned earlier, lots of our young people don't have access to, particularly at the beginning of lockdown, they didn't have access to wide open spaces. And in fact, many of them probably were confined to flats or very small spaces. So our cards have kind of evolved over time. The early ones are ones that you can do in a very limited space with very limited equipment. And the latter ones tend to then go into areas which are slightly bigger as government guidelines have changed. And then lastly, just bearing in mind the exit points and signposting young people to clubs in Birmingham. We know at the moment that that may not happen, but the link is on the cards in case young people want to then go onto a club in that activity. Go to the next slide, Jim, please. So these are just some examples of the cards that we've produced from different areas. Each week we produce 5 cards on the same activity. As you can see there in the top right hand corner, that's our Twitter page, which is at PE@Home1. If you want to have a look at what's gone on Twitter. If you want to download any of these resources, you can find them on the King Edward's website. So it's www.kessp.com. They're free to download and they'll remain on the website and they'll be free to anyone that wants to use them. So as you can see on here, there's 3 main sort of physical parts of the card. An exploratory phase on the left-hand side, where a skill is introduced and young people are asked to explore that skill. A practice phase where they put that skill into practice and challenge themselves and others within the family. And then a develop phase where that skill is then brought onto another level. It might be a progressive level, or it might be something they can transfer into a different area of school life. And we think this mirrors the sort of structure of a PE lesson and how it may be taught in schools, but it's easy enough for parents and young people to pick it up and understand how to follow the steps through. You can also see on there lots of cross-curricular links. As I say, it's really important for us to make sure that they are hitting the right key stage and that they are challenging enough for young people. And we've got the club links there at the bottom. They're hyperlinks, so parents and young people can click on those and go direct to club websites if they enjoy the resource. The next slide, Jim, please. So just in terms of impact, this has been really important for us to monitor. Initially, when we started writing these resources, we really were focusing on young people in Birmingham, hopefully having an impact on their activity levels. And we know that our resources have been shared in a variety of ways. You can see from the picture on the top right there, lots of resources and links to our resources have been put on school websites. That's been really important for us because we know that parents trust school websites and they trust the content that's on there. So we know lots of the downloads that we've had have come through school websites. We know that lots of resources have gone home in school home packs, both through SSPs, schools, and on school websites as well, which has been absolutely fantastic. And for us, that hit one of the key things that we wanted to achieve. And that is that it's accessible to everybody in Birmingham, whether they've got the internet or not. And I know for lots of our young people who don't have internet access, printing them off and sending them home has been really valuable. Lots of schools I know have set homework from our resources as well. So those have been easy to send home or to email to families. And all of them have gone out through Twitter, Facebook and email as well. So in terms of our impact in Birmingham, they've been shared in a variety of ways. We know that lots of schools and school support partnerships and teachers and schools have accessed our resources, but we've also been really interested to see what alternative provision schools have done with them as well. We know hospital schools have used our cards for children that aren't well enough at the moment to go home. So using them within a hospital environment has been quite a surprising development. You can see there the tweet from Trauma Informed Schools UK. That's a charity that work with children with mental health issues. We know that they've shared and used lots of our resources with young people in that category as well. One of the key things for us is that we know that Twitter is generally used by a lower age band. So we were really keen to try and get parents involved in what we were doing as well. So Sport Birmingham have supported us in doing that. They sponsored adverts which were filtered to go to parents with children in the age ranges that we were aiming at. And you can see there we've had over 1,000 clicks from those adverts alone. So we know that our resources have gone to parents within the Birmingham area. And then just lastly, on the bottom right there, you can see some young people that have engaged with the resources. Interestingly, they've done the cross-curricular tasks, the more sort of academic written tasks on there, just as much as they've done the physical tasks as well. So it's been really fantastic to see. Next slide, please, Jim. One of the things that we've been sort of most surprised at is how far our resources have gone outside of the Birmingham area. So this is just an infographic of a breakdown of some of the key data that we'll take away and look at in a lot more detail over the next few weeks. Currently, we've had over 21,000 downloads from our website, predominantly in the United States, in the UK, Ireland, France and China. You can see by the world map there, if it's coloured in blue, we've had downloads in that country. So we really have had lots of interaction with all over the world, really, particularly in expat communities within the Middle East, Australia, and lots of other countries as well. In terms of social media impact, you can see there how many retweets we've had and what our favourite cards have been. That doesn't include Facebook at the moment, which we're still looking at the data on that. So that is literally just through Twitter. And you can see there the activities that were the most popular. As I say, if you want to download any of the resources, they are still on the website. We are going to be publishing more material and content in September 2020. So if you would like any more information on that, if you go to the Twitter page, it will all be on there. And then just some testimonials down in the bottom right-hand corner. This is just some of the feedback that we've had from a variety of different sources. It's really great to get that feedback because it obviously informs where we go from here. Last slide, please, Jim. And then just lastly from me, in terms of where we go in the future, we are going to do a case study into the impact of our PE at home cards over lockdown. We think that's really important to understand where those cards have been, who they've been used by, and what the needs for our young people and schools are moving forward. We have just recently authored some resources for Youth Sport Trust. These hopefully will be used by schools across Birmingham, and they're using PE as a vehicle to improve social, emotional and cognitive skills and abilities of children, sort of qualities they may have lost in lockdown for a variety of reasons. And those cards can be used with Year 5, Year 6, Year 7, possibly Year 8 if there are vulnerable children that have returned to school. As I say, we will be releasing more content in towards September 2020. And key for us is to make sure that those are in line with government guidelines. Things are moving very quickly at the moment, very rapidly. So hopefully we can support our schools by having content that's relevant to them when they return to school. Pass back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Helen, that's great. Does anybody have any questions for Helen on the PE at home work? Silence is golden. There's a couple of questions that have come in. I've answered one of them, but Owen's asked, is there anything similar to use over the summer holiday? So thinking about this summer, starting from next week, do you think your PE at home resources can be used over the summer holiday by parents?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that we've produced so far has a physical distancing sort of tone to it. Most of it can be used with families. That was the initial start point. But we've also found that if schools are running holiday clubs or things like that, they can certainly be used within a physical distancing environment in school as well. And many schools have been using them in that context. I'd also say, because the cards run from early years to Key Stage 4, there'd be nothing against a Key Stage 2 child trying some of the things on the Key Stage 3 card, particularly if they're quite able in sports, and if children haven't had a go at some of the activities that maybe aren't traditional sports. The summer holidays might be a really good time to try out some of those alternative sports, like ultimate frisbee, for example. Has been a really, really positive and really popular card. So if they haven't had a go at some of those activities, it might be quite a nice idea during the summer holidays.
That's great. Thanks for that. Thanks for the questions coming in on the chat. Do keep them coming over the next two speakers. Over to James for Pathway to Podium.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Hello, everyone. My name's James Grinstead. I'm Senior Partnerships Manager for Young People at Sport Birmingham. I'm just going to spend the next few minutes just talking to you about the Pathway to Podium initiative. It's an initiative that's been developed over the last 8 months or so, and has been endorsed by the United by Birmingham 2022 programme. So it just shows that it aligns closely with the mission of the Games that are coming up in a couple of years, very much around improving the health and well-being of young people across the city. So it's been developed over the last 8 months or so. Like I said, we at Sport Birmingham have led on that, but it's been very much a partnership with a number of head teachers, school games organisers, some school sport professionals, Association for Physical Education, AFP, Youth Sport Trust, and Birmingham City Council Education Directorate as well. So it's been very much been designed to recognise and encourage schools' contribution to PE, school sport, physical activity, to be a sort of an initiative by which we can celebrate a lot of the positive work that's going on in Birmingham, and also use it so that schools can push further, so that they can do more and offer more opportunities to the young people. It's been very much designed around the 2022 Commonwealth Games that have come in. A lot of conversations we had in the early days were around schools wanted an initiative to connect them with the games, and this we feel is a good initiative to do that, and it points directly towards our main aim of increasing the opportunities available for young people to be active for a minimum of 60 minutes. It's also linked in with the Birmingham 2022 official educational legacy programme that I know a lot of schools are waiting for. We're very much closely working with the legacy team at the Commonwealth Games, and that's going to be launched in 2021. But this programme and that should sort of work very closely together, and it's been designed that way so that hopefully schools, if they're involved in this and the education legacy programme, can get obviously dual benefit from that. Next slide, please, Jim. So what is Pathway to Podium? How does it work? So it's an initiative, like I said, that focuses on 5 sets of criteria, all around PE, school sport and physical activity. The 5 Ps, as we're calling them, are profile, participation, performance, people and places. So these are all elements by which school sport and physical activity can be developed across the school. So profile, for example, looks at how embedded PE, school sport and physical activity is within the whole school and the whole school improvement. Participation looks at things such as active travel, active lessons, initiatives such as the Daily Mile. Performance looks at how involved the school is in inter-school competitions. So that could be sort of local sports competitions that are taking place, things like the school games. A number of the criteria are very, very closely aligned with the school games mark criteria. So if you're aware of those, then a number of the criteria do overlap with that. People is very much around developing the people, so CPD for staff, leadership opportunities for students, and the places is around how we can link with local clubs, local opportunities within the city, and how we can make sure that children are being active at school, but also within their community as well. The key element of it is that schools will complete a little self-assessment on each of those 5 key areas. And then based on their answers to that and the evidence that they provide, they'll receive a rating of bronze, silver or gold. And the aim is that schools on the back of that have a bit of an action plan that can show them where they can improve on their current standing and hopefully improve the outcomes for the young people. It's very closely linked, and we've made sure with a lot of the work that we've done with our partners is that it's closely linked to the Ofsted framework, very much around the intent, the implementation and the impact that different initiatives are having on the young people. And as I said, it's very much linked to our commitment to support young people to be active for at least 60 minutes every day. Next slide, please, Jim. So the Pathway to Podium, it's open to all schools, so primary schools, secondary schools, all through schools, special schools, every school in Birmingham will be open to get involved in this, and we're going to launch it in September. So in line with the new academic year. We're currently going through a pilot phase with a number of schools who are just testing the process, testing the system for its user friendliness. And as I said, it's been very much developed by people working within schools and within school sport to make sure that it's not just seen as yet another thing that schools can do, but it hopefully links in with a number of key criteria that schools are aiming towards, and that it can be of real benefit to the schools once they get involved. Further details can be found on the initiative via our website. The link's there, and obviously I think these slides are going to be passed through to everyone at the end, so please go on and have a look there. Like I said, it's going to be launched in September. if any schools want to register their interest in being involved initially, then you can obviously email us at Sport Birmingham, the Schools at Sport Birmingham email address at the bottom there. But we will be obviously doing a big promotional push in September to make sure that all the information gets sent out to schools. Next slide, please, Jim. The official launch, as such, we had to knock it back. This was planned for May, but obviously with everything that went on, we had to postpone the event. We're running an Active Schools Commonwealth event. It's now going to be on the 12th of October, fingers crossed, and it's going to be held at Edgbaston Stadium. The event is aimed, it's going to be the official launch of this Pathway to Podium initiative, but it's also aimed at providing head teachers, senior leaders within school, the opportunity to hear about the current update on Birmingham 2022. So we've got Ian Reid, who's the Chief Executive of the Commonwealth Games in 22, providing an update from their progress, and also an education inspection framework briefing, which is going to be from Steve Caldecott, who's an Ofsted inspection, also part of AFP themselves. If anyone wishes to register for that event, I know a number of people had registered for the May event. If you have registered for that, then your registration has been sort of carried over for this event. But if you do wish to register for the event on the 12th of October, again, you can access that via our website and the link at the bottom there. Like I said, it's very much an opportunity for school head teachers, senior leaders, people working within schools to get a clear update on how the 22 Commonwealth Games can support your schools. Again, I mentioned the Education Legacy Programme. I'm sure there'll be an update regarding that, and also the official launch of the Pathway to Podium initiative itself. That's all from me, Jim. Nice and quick. Is there any questions come in?
Thank you, James. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. Flurry of questions towards the end there for you. The first one is around extracurricular clubs. If they're being taken into account, and most extracurricular clubs might not run until the second autumn term. How's it going to work?
Yeah. Obviously, we didn't know all this was going to happen when we were planning it, but it's very much a case that we would look for you to use the data from last year. So if you're obviously unable to run extracurricular clubs, then obviously none have ran since March. We'd ask you to provide the data from last academic year, and obviously we'll take into account that it's only obviously the autumn and part of the spring term for that. So yeah, very much it will be a case of indicating, I guess, what you had planned or what you would normally run, and then similar to, I think Jane mentioned earlier with the premium reporting, it's just indicating why you're now unable to run clubs, and obviously, yeah, we'll take all that into account during the process.
That's great, thanks, James. Last question, posed by Emma. How does it relate to the school games, Mark?
Yeah, very closely. Yeah, Emma's question, will it be taken into account? Yes, it will. So yeah, there's a number of the questions that are very much aligned with the school games, Mark. So as I said, because we've worked with the school games organisers and other partners, it's been very clear. If schools are already providing evidence, they don't need to provide it again. We can access the school games, Mark, you've already received, and we can see obviously your responses from that. So you just need to indicate that within the process, and we'll be able to cross-reference that with the relevant school games organiser. Again, it's just making it so that it's not time-consuming for schools, and hopefully it can be seen as a beneficial programme for you to get involved in.
That's great. Thanks, James. I take there aren't any more questions for James? No? Okay. Okay, last but by no means least, Hannah Reid, representing the school games organisers.
Thanks, Jim. Yes, welcome everybody to my presentation. I'll try not to keep you any longer than the 4:30 finish. Just a few things I want you to have a think about before I go into this presentation. I don't need answers to these questions, it's just some rhetorical questions for you to have a think about, because the presentation that I've got is kind of aimed at engaging parents, and if you've already engaged parents in physical activity and sport, great, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done. So just have a think about how engaged, interested are parents in their child's physical education, physical activity, or sport in general within your school. Does your school struggle to gain support from parents when it comes to physical education and activity? And potentially, what are the reasons for this? Do they think that other subjects have got more importance over PE? What tools, organisations have you used to help improve relationships with parents, if any at all? Is that something that you could look towards supporting? And if you don't already know, there are 11 school games organisers in Birmingham. I'm one of them, Helen Tonks is another, and then there's another 9 of us as well. And we are all free. We are all here to help support you and your school, so please use us. So when I'm going through this presentation, just kind of have those questions in mind. Thanks, Jim. Okay, so hopefully most of you will have heard about this initiative because all the school games organisers have been blasting it through Twitter. But the school games, the Birmingham School Games Challenges is also endorsed by United by Birmingham 2022, which is the community strand of the Commonwealth Games. So obviously it's great to have that support. The web address for the challenge portal is just there underneath the logo as well. So I would encourage you to just have a look at this after the presentation at your own leisure so you can see what I'm actually talking about. Thanks, Jim. Okay, so this is the concept. I originally came up with this idea very early into the lockdown stages, and I was very conscious that I wanted to create something not just to fill the gap of the cancellation of all the in-person competition and events that we were all due to run, but something that can actually be used further on down the line as well. And especially since it looks like we're in this for the long haul and things aren't going to be back to normal anytime soon, that it was something that could be used on year and to help engage more schools into the school games programme as a whole. Sorry, it has been developed and coordinated by the 11 SGOs and Sport Birmingham, and we have been supported by local partners who today include Warwickshire County Cricket Club, Penathlon Challenge, who, for those of you who don't know, are a charity organisation who run events for pupils with special educational needs and disabilities, Rounders England and the Birmingham Netball Association. We're also working with School UK and England Handball this week for our handball challenges, and then looking further into September, we're looking to work with Birmingham City Football Club as well. We are looking to reward schools and participants who take part, and there is a key emphasis on participation and not winning. In fact, the only thing that you would get if you finish first, second, third is a certificate that says you finished first, second and third. There's a couple of reasons for this. We don't take any video footage of the pupils taking part in the challenges, so we are heavily reliant on pupils and teachers and parents being honest when submitting the scores. So there is a massive focus on participation. Unfortunately, we have had a few children who have have broken world records in year 3. So, but to be fair, in the grand scheme of things, more or less every result seems to be very accurate. Okay, next slide, I think, Jim. Okay, so this is how it works if you haven't seen it already. So any school teacher or a parent, and emphasis on parents here because we want to engage them more, can sign up to register multiple pupils. Anyone over the age of 14 can register themselves, so pupils in year 9 and 10. Obviously, I'm not expecting any more sign-ups from year 11 because they've now left. But anybody under the age of 13 will need to be registered by a parent or a teacher, because that is the law. There are specific area codes for your school, so those codes are at the end of this presentation. Teachers don't necessarily need to have permission from their parents to register a child on the portal, because pupils can remain anonymous, and some schools have actually named pupils Purple 1, Purple 2, or named them from their bubble groups, so that's absolutely fine as well. Parents, pupils and teachers currently can submit up to 3 results per challenge. So anybody who submits a result is competing against themselves, so we're encouraging them to beat their personal bests. and their peers in school, which is the intra element of the school games, and then their peers in other schools as well. So that's the inter-school element of the school games. Once a challenge has ended, an individual will be told where they finished, and they'll be able to download their personal certificate, which has their names on it as well, and their school games value badge. What we are saying with the school games virtual badges is if a pupil has collected 2 or more of the same badge, they will be awarded an actual physical badge in September when we are able to do so. So if pupils have downloaded certificates and specifically their badges, keep them, and obviously just let your SGO know from September who has got what badges, and then we can award those in September. This portal, the concept, it is free and it is complete and it is really easy to use. It was designed by me, so it needed to be easy. So, and the feedback that I've had from everybody so far has been that it's been easy to use. So, yeah. Thanks, Jim. Okay, this is just the homepage of the challenge portal. So if you don't know those 6 school games value badges, they're there on your screen, and just underneath the United by Birmingham logo, you will see the 11 SGO areas plus the Sport Birmingham logo as well. Those all will link to the school games organisers area page on the school games website, or a alternative website. So you can actually find out a little bit more about your host site if you don't already know who they are. Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, so once you've actually registered or you've logged on, you will see a list of challenges. The ones that are the active ones will be at the top of the list, and then the ones that have been since the 1st of June will be below. You can still access any of the challenges, but only the most recent 3 are active. So you can submit results for the handball challenges this week, but nothing from previous weeks. But I would still encourage pupils and parents to still have a practice of these challenges if they haven't done so over the summer period. So I'm just going to go from left to right on the screen. So once you click on a challenge, this is what you should see. So you will have a video on the left hand side, which most of the videos are silent, but some of them do have some talking. That's absolutely fine. Just watch the video and see what you need to do. Underneath, we have any partnership logos of the people we've been working with. So this was our cricket week. So this was a video produced by Danny Maskell, and the logos below are linkable to the Chance to Shine website, where there are more challenges, cricket challenges that pupils can take part in if they've enjoyed these ones. Our school games value for that week was respect. So that's our theme there. Just moving down to the green boxes at the bottom, these are the results tabs. Now these will look slightly different depending on who you are. SGOs will be able to see school results, SGO area results and Birmingham results. But because we had a few issues with or questions raised around the validity of some of the results that were coming in, we decided that only school teachers will be able to see their school results, and SGOs will be able to see the SGO results and the Birmingham results. The Birmingham results is what I use to pull off the top 5 schools within the area after each week. So they get released at 12 o'clock every Monday. And essentially, if your school is in those top 5, it means you've had a pupil finish within the top 5 of that week. Then moving over, the blue button there is you can just add or switch users. So if I was a member of staff and I'd added pupils, I could just click on that and then click on the names would come up, and I could submit a result for a pupil or view their certificate, download it for them. And then because this challenge is finished, there isn't a submit button, but next to that blue button, there would also be a button that says submit, which is where you'd submit the pupil's results. And then just on the right hand side of that screen, you've got the text that tells you the explanation of the activity, and then the adaptations for pupils with special educational needs or disabilities, which obviously can be adapted for anybody who might be struggling with the activity following the STEP principle, so space, task, equipment and people. And I think that's about it on that one. Thanks, Jim. Okay, these stats are just slightly out of date because I did this on Saturday, but we do have 167 schools out of 524 registered in Birmingham. Those are the stats. They have increased slightly from Saturday, but they are fairly accurate. The activities we've completed are there, and as I said, we've got handball this week, we've got tri-golf, and then rounders and then netball. So we will finish these challenges on the 9th of August. So they do go into the start of the summer holidays. So I would encourage you to still promote this with parents. Within certain weeks, we've awarded prizes. So with partnering with Warwickshire Cricket Club and Chance to Shine, they kindly donated 2 cricket sets, and the schools, again, emphasis on participation. The schools with the most participants within that cricket week, primary Manor Park and secondary Aston Manor, have both received or will receive in September a Chance to Shine cricket set. So well done to those schools. We're also giving a Huawei tablet given to the most engaged pupil across weeks 2 to 6. This pupil has been identified and we're just in the process of sorting that out. There will be further prizes given out once the challenges are finished. And these include some Adidas kit and netball for schools. Just some further stats for you that aren't on this slide that I've managed to pull off today. We have had 6 pupils that have taken part in every single challenge, which I know doesn't sound like quite a lot, but it's, you know, when you think they've been engaged week on week for 6 weeks doing these challenges, that's quite a commitment. We have had 1,155 pupils taking part in at least 1 challenge, and then we've had 865 pupils taking part in 2 or more challenges. Thanks, Jim. This is a week by week comparison. Again, I'm not going to dwell too much on this data because we're obviously in very unique circumstances. I appreciate schools have got a lot going on, and this is probably the last thing that they're actually trying to promote. And I'm also conscious we're coming to the end of the academic year as well. But the baseline data from our first week in basketball, which you can see on the left-hand side there in the white column, we started off with 832 participants across the 3 challenges for that week. So pupils might be counted more than once. As you can see, going through to the cricket, that's increased by to 1,080, which is no surprise because we had a lot of support and publicity from Warwickshire as well. We have seen a dip from week 5 and again from week 6 from last week. However, that's expected due to the reasons that I've just explained. However, I'd like to see that number kind of stay, you know, around about the 530 mark. But if we can increase it, that's great. Just looking at the total number of schools engaged through pupils submitting results, we obviously started with 62, and then in cricket we had 48. So whilst we seem to have had a little bit of a decline in the number of schools, the number of different schools registering results, we've actually had more pupils from certain schools registering results. So it shows that some schools are really pushing that in school, and that might be a case that the schools are actually doing it in school with their pupils, which again is absolutely fine. What I'm hoping to be able to do, and this is still a work in development, is schools and SGOs will be able to pull off their reports. So some of the things that you see on the left hand side there, schools will be able to pull off reports, so you will know exactly how many pupils from which year groups are doing which challenges. And then moving into next year, I'm hoping that will be of benefit to you. Okay, thanks, Jim. So this is how we need you to help. If you can help promote in schools and to parents as much as possible. As I've said, I know schools are exceptionally busy, and this actually can be a tool to really help try and engage parents in the physical activity of their children, because they can take part too. So parents and staff can all take part in these challenges and submit results. And I've been listing the numbers of staff versus teachers for the last 3 weeks as well on Twitter. The parents are in the lead at the moment. They've won the last 3 weeks compared to the staff. Not that it's a competition, it's all about participation. But if you do need any support, please contact your SGO, although the details are at the end of this presentation. Moving into next year, at the moment, all the activities are during a week. So we have a themed week, and we've had that since the 1st of June. Looking at September to try and make things a little bit easier for schools is we may start in the 2nd week of September, but continue it through to the 2nd week of November, and we'll have more challenges. So the idea is that schools, parents, pupils can do the challenges at any point during that time frame, submit the results, again, because I know that there is a lot going on in school. This will form the basis. I know it says some there, but it will probably be most of the level 2 and level 3 competitions for the majority of next year. We've already touched on the fact that clubs, extracurricular clubs might be difficult to run. So actually personal challenges are a great way to still engage pupils in something and actually take part and link to the school games as well. So I know you all have your own mechanisms to promote through school. So whether that's email, newsletter, text message, learning packs, etc. If you can do as much as you can this week, it would be much appreciated. Okay, thanks, Jim. If you've got any other questions, I've seen a few things flash up, which is great. But if you've got any questions, you can speak to your own school games organiser, or you can email me directly. My email's on there. The portal link is also on this presentation, so you can link straight to that. And finally, just a thank you from me. I think, Jim, there is one more slide yet. So this is just the name, the area, the SGO name, email, Twitter handle, and the area code that you will need. So when you register, if you're a member of staff or a parent or a pupil, the first thing that you will be asked to do is enter a code. The code is there on the right-hand side. It's not case sensitive, so you can just put that in. If you are a teacher, you will need another code in addition to this one, which is Teacher 2020 with a capital T. So if teachers are registering, they will need to add that onto the form as well. So they'd need 2 codes. Just the final thing to mention, we are in the process of putting some feedback, a Survey Monkey together. So hopefully that will help drive the portal forwards into September and beyond. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Hannah. We have had quite a few questions come in, which we'll try to answer. I'm conscious of time, so if anybody would like to stay on and ask questions in front of a smaller group, the presenters will be on for another few minutes. But what I'll do from this point forward is you'll receive a copy of the slides, but you'll also get an FAQ document. So I'll keep a copy of the questions that are posed and the answers from the panel. Thank you very much for my panel of local experts. They've been absolutely fantastic. As I said, if any of those delegates on the session would like to stick around for a few more minutes to pose any questions to each individual, that's absolutely fine. But thank you very much for your attendance, and I hope to see you soon.
Hannah?
Yes. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Hi there. I was just wondering, you said the comps, these challenges will carry on as of September.
Yeah.
Is there a place, maybe on the Central Sports website, I'm not sure, where it says what the challenges will be every week, so that we could kind of maybe get a group of children that were interested in that particular challenge and run that challenge maybe with that group as an after school or something, instead of going to a comp?
Yeah, so we are still in the process, well, I'm still in the process of looking at what we're doing within our own cluster. But as a city, I can say that we're looking at athletics challenges, so mainly a mixture of track and field events, but probably more field than track. And we're also looking at dance, potentially some fitness activities as well. And a lot of it is going to be based on the government guidance. So specifically for the autumn term, we are looking at events or challenges that children can still do by themselves, because we don't know what September's going to look like. So it's very much going to be driven by what is happening within the country at the time. From a local area, obviously I'll get you some more guidance on what other activities we might be looking at, but I don't want to overwhelm people with challenges. There's a lot of other stuff going on, so it will probably be small to start off with, and then we'll grow between the spring and the summer term as well.
That sounds good. Yeah, that's excellent. Just so we know, like, challenge in 2 weeks' time is probably going to be this area. That sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions from any panelists, not just Hannah? Don't bother all on Hannah. No, I don't think we've had no more questions. We've just had good comments come.
Yeah,
from the group chat, so I don't think there's any questions.
I'm just looking at the chat myself.
Yeah. If there's nobody else asking questions, if you can exit the room. The polite way of saying that on a virtual conference.
Yeah, just to say, I think I've already mentioned this, but the SGO challenges is all completely free. You don't have to be part of a specific area. It is literally for any educational institution in Birmingham.